Good morning. Today we are going to start with the respiratory system, and the first pathological disease that we'll consider is asthma. What is asthma? How do we define asthma? It is an airway obstruction caused by a trigger. That is the reason it is termed as a reactive airway disease. There is a reaction produced by the airway in response to a trigger which will lead into the obstruction of airway. This obstruction, when maintained for a quite long period of time or after repeated triggers, it converts into a chronic inflammation or inflammatory lung disease. In early stages of asthma, where the responses created are quite acute, but the number of times or the duration for which this disease has been present in the body, the duration is less, then it's in a reversible state. Rather than after a considerable period of time, it converts into an irreversible change or an irreversible disease, and it leads into a permanent obstruction of airway or the tracheas and your bronchioles. So there will be an obstruction in it. Now, what are the triggers or what are the causes from which this particular disease develops? See, it's not an etiological factor. They can be considered as an etiological factor, but they are the triggers which will bring on the episode of asthma. What are the triggers? They are allergens. They can be exercise. Allergens can be of any type. They can be of pollen grain or a certain type of chemical inhaled to the respiratory tract. It can also be an exercise. A particular amount of exercise can lead into an episode of asthma. Respiratory infection ranging from your nose to the throat or to the lungs, they can also lead into an attack of asthma. Nose and sinus problems, that is any disease like allergic rhinitis or sinusitis, can also lead into episodes of asthma. There are certain types of drugs or the medicines that are used, and also the food additives. Certain types of food can also excite the episode of asthma. Gastroesophageal reflux disorder and emotional stress. So this is a psychological factor. Apart from, if you don't find any trigger which is responsible, then you can also consider the emotional stress as a trigger for asthma. Now, how does this asthma leads into, or what is the pathophysiology related to asthma? So that can be understood through a flow chart, and I will explain to you. It's written quite small, I will read it out for you. There is, first of all, for bringing on the episode of asthma, what you need is a trigger. What is this trigger? Trigger can be in the form of an infection, or it can be form of an allergen, exercise, irritant, drugs, food additive, and also we have considered the emotional stress. What it will do is, it will lead into an IgE mast cell mediated response. IgE mast cell mediated response. What is IgE? Immunoglobulin E mast cell mediated response, which in turn will lead into increase in the number of mast cells, eosinophils, macrophages and lymphocytes. So these all cells are involved in production of the asthmatic episode. So what happens after this is, there is an early phase response and a late phase response. What happens in early phase response? That is, it peaks into 30 to 60 minutes after the exposure of an trigger. It will lead into bronchial smooth muscle constriction. You all know that the bronchioles do have smooth muscles, and these smooth muscles will go into a spasm. Mucus secretion. There is excessive mucus which will secrete in the respiratory tract. Vascular leakage and mucosal edema. So you can understand all these terms mentioned here. One or the other way they are causing obstruction of the large and small airway. They also cause air trapping. And what is air trapping? As the air flows inside your respiratory tract into the lungs, to the alveoli, when they try to come out, the rate of expulsion or expiration will get increased so much because of the air trapping, because the passage has been blocked. Then you have respiratory acidosis, that is the pH will range somewhere in the range of below 7, and hypoxemia, that is there will be a considerable drop in the oxygen saturation level of blood. Then comes the late phase response, which will peak into the next 5 to 6 hours, It will cause infiltration with eosinophil and neutrophil, inflammation and bronchial hyperactivity, which will again in the time of 2 days will lead into infiltration of monocytes and lymphocytes. They are the late reactants to the episode of asthma. Again, what they will lead into is the same obstruction and air blocking, which is called. So, what happens as soon as the trigger is exposed, it will lead into two parts: early phase and the late phase. Early phase response will peak in 30 minutes to an hour, and ultimately what we do is it cause obstruction of the airway. Same way in the late phase, there is a peak in 5 to 6 hours, and after 1 to 2 days, there will lead into obstruction of the airway. What is the difference? The difference is due to the molecules involved or the cells involved in it. So you can see the difference here. Cells involved are monocytes and lymphocytes, which will cause obstruction of airway. So, understanding the pathophysiology of asthma. So, what you have is there are two things. There is the constriction of the smooth muscles present in bronchioles, which is causing bronchospasm, and there is an airway inflammation caused due to the WBC monocyte, lymphocyte, eosinophil entering into the airway. Now, understanding the pathophysiology of early phase response, as we have considered that the peak rises in 30 to 60 minutes and it will subside in somewhere around the 90 minutes or later. It is characterized primarily by the bronchospasm. So, the first episode or the first event that will occur is bronchospasm. Increased mucus secretion will be there, edema formation, and increased amount of tenacious sputum. Tenacious sputum is a sticky sputum which is not formed, which is particularly seen as thread-like sputum, or when you try to expel it, you find thread-like substances or elongate in the form of a thread. Patient experiences wheeze, cough, chest tightness, and dyspnea. Now, what is wheezing? Wheezing is a particular type of sound produced during the respiratory process, during the inhalation and exhalation, which produces a whistling type of sound, which is known as the wheeze. Wheeze is also sometimes compared with the bronchi. Wheeze is one particularly which is heard with naked ears. You don't need a stethoscope to listen to the wheeze. So it's a respiratory sound which is produced by the narrowing of the air passage, and when the air will travel through the narrowed air passage, it will cause a wheezing sound. You will also have cough, chest tightness, that is oppression of breathing. It is, you will experience that the chest cavity or the chest wall is not able to expand, and dyspnea, which is difficulty in breathing. The person will say that he is not able to get as much amount of air that a particular person needs. Then comes the late phase response. As you remember, the late phase response started 5 to 6 hours after the initiation of the trigger, and then it came into action after 1 to 2 days. Now, what is happening here is it is characterized primarily by inflammation. So, understanding asthma, you need to understand two parts. One is bronchospasm and other is the inflammation part. Bronchospasm is brought as a part of the early phase response, and inflammation is a late phase response. Histamine and other mediators set up self-sustaining cycle, increasing airway reactivity, causing hyper-responsiveness to allergen and other stimuli. Now, what are allergens and other stimuli? They are the same triggers. So, again, if they are continuously exposed to that, they will create a hyper-responsiveness to that particular allergen. Increased airway resistance leads to air trapping in alveoli and hyperinflation of lungs. So, the quality of air present in alveoli will gradually decrease. That will lead it to reduced oxygen saturation in blood. If airway inflammation is not treated or does not resolve, may lead to irreversible lung damage. So this is very important that we have understood this thing that asthma in early stages is reversible, but after continuously facing this inflammatory stage, it can even lead to lung damage, which can be obviously life-threatening or threatening. So what are the factors which are causing obstruction in asthma? That is First clause is stool muscle which is present in the bronchioles, which is causing spasm here. So the trigger present will cause bronchospasm, and also there would be an excessive secretion of mucus. As you can see, this was the width of the tract, but due to hyperactivity, hyperresponsiveness, and excessive secretion of mucus, there is an inflammation in the mucous membrane, and also hypersecretion of mucus is causing obstruction, and you can see the narrowed passage here. So summary, what is, there is a reduction in the airway diameter that is caused by bronchospasm and also the inflammation. Increase in the airway resistance, that is as the air will try to travel through the air tract, that is due to mucosal inflammation, constriction of smooth muscle and excess mucus production. So you need to have these three things in mind. If you are prescribing certain medicines to the patient, you need to understand what exactly is happening in the asthma. There is an inflammation, there is a constriction, and also excessive mucus production present in the pathophysiology of asthma. Now the clinical manifestation are unpredictable and variable. That is how it's unpredictable. Why it is unpredictable? Because you cannot say that the particular episode will come at a particular time only. It can be variable. It can have diurnal variation, and even the person will be having certain amount of good days and bad days. But the prediction of bad days when the episode will come, it's very unpredictable and variable also. So what happens is the recurrent episode of wheezing, breathlessness, cough and tightness of chest. This cluster or this set of symptoms can appear any time of the day and any day. It's not particular that this particular day or this particular days of the month or week the patient will be suffering from these symptoms. Again, the symptoms which are very prominent, that is expiration may be prolonged from an inspiration in ratio 1:2 to 1:3 or 1:4. That is to explain that the inspiration would be quite shorter and the expiration would be quite longer. That is, if suppose 1 second is required for inspiration, you require 2 seconds, 2 seconds or 4 seconds for expiration. What is the reason behind it? Again, the reason is same, that is the airway obstruction and also the trapping of air in the alveoli, which will resist movement of air out of the lung, and that is the reason the expiration time is increased. Between attacks may be asymptomatic with normal or near normal lung function. If the person is not exposed to any trigger, then in those duration the symptoms would be, there is a patient who would be having any symptom, you would be seeing he is doing his activities normal, there is no shortness of breath, there is no breathing, there is no coughing, and the lung functions, that is if you measure the inspiration volume, expiration volume, tidal volume, reserve volume, they would be almost near normal. Again, the clinical burden, wheezing is an unreliable sign to going severity of attack. Again, sometimes what happens is we try to judge the patient with a set of symptoms. Again, wheezing is one of the important symptoms of asthma, but if suppose the amount of wheeze that we are listening is of a low audible sound or this, we don't find it is too loud, but again it is an unreliable sign because it can be such that the wheeze is low, but the attack, the severity of attack is quite high. Severe attacks can have no audible wheezing due to reduction in airflow. So, see, wheeze is particularly a sound produced by the flowing air through the constricted bronchioles. Suppose if the bronchioles are totally obstructed, then there will be no production of wheeze. But as they are totally obstructed, there is a severe form of asthmatic attack. Silent chest is obvious sign of impending respiratory failure. This is obvious means it's something grave. It has too much of severity in it. So silent chest, there is no sound in the chest. Usually whenever we breathe, even a normal person is breathing, and we experience certain type of sound coming, and that is why we use stethoscope to judge what are the respiratory sounds. But if there is a silent chest, then it's dangerous. Difficulty with air movement can create a feeling of suffocation. This is quite common, that is, if a person comes and says, I am feeling suffocated, I was exposed to particular type of trigger, and a particular time he says that this is the time whenever it's cold or it's too hot, the person feels suffocation, and this is a sign for asthma. Patient may feel increasingly anxious and mobilizing secretion may become difficult. That is, the person is trying to cough out the mucus but it's difficult. The difficult sputum is a sign of asthma. Now, about the examination of the patient during an acute attack, usually reveal the sign of hypoxia. That is restlessness, increased anxiety, inappropriate behavior. That is, the person will try to gasp air as much as possible. Increased pulse and blood pressure, and also there is pulsus paradoxus, that is drop in the systolic blood pressure during inspiratory cycle, that is more than 10 millimeters of mercury. If there is too much drop in the systolic blood pressure, this is termed as, clinically it is termed as pulsus paradoxus. So these are certain examinations that you can do. See, restlessness can be seen through your naked eye, increased anxiety. Patient could be hurrying and worrying, and somehow the patient can get air, so it may be moved from one place to other and not sit at a particular position. If the patient is lying, they will try to sit, if it's sitting, they will try to rock and roll at its particular position so that the respiration becomes easy. And also the signs of pulsus paradoxus, it can also be seen. Then there is one more terminology that is known as status asthmaticus. It is a severe, life-threatening attack, refractory, usually frequent, where patient poses risk to respiratory failure. So, if a patient undergoing treatment still is not responding and it faces a life-threatening attack such that the patient needs to be hospitalized or be drawn to oxygen support system to restore the breathing, that is known as status asthmaticus. So this status asthmaticus is a life-threatening position. Now the diagnostic terms, how do you diagnose about the asthma? Detailed history and physical examination need to be done. Physical examination in terms of expansion of the chest, and when the patient is under an acute attack, you see anxiety, restlessness, other features. Detailed history in terms of the family history, because family history here to be very much essential. Usually it comes to the positive family history of either father or mother suffering from the same. Pulmonary function test, also known as the lung function test, pulmonary test can be done for inquiring about the various capacities and volumes that you might have learned in your physiology, the tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, and all this we need to understand. Peak flow monitoring, that is when you ask the patient to forcefully inspire, then you need to measure the amount of air that is being passed. Chest X-ray can be helpful just in terms to analyze the bronchioles, if there is any calcification or other features present. Then you have oximetry, allergy testing, when is a particular allergen can be identified. Blood levels of eosinophils, usually patients with asthma will show eosinophilia, that is increased amount of eosinophils in blood. Sputum culture and sensitivity, just to inquire about the any type of respiratory infection present or not. So that's it. That was all about asthma. In the next class, we will be starting up with COPD. Be ready with it.